Welcome. You've found your way to a quiet place, a space where the past drifts slowly across the mind, where history hums gently in the background, and the world softens into calm. Tonight, you'll step through the thick wooden doors of a medieval monastery, not as a visitor but as one of them. Imagine, the year is 1283. The sun has barely risen. A bell tolls softly in the mist. You are a novice monk, your head is shaved. Your robe is coarse and brown. You live by candlelight and water, and your days are shaped not by choice, but by the tolling of a bell. In this story, there are no battles, no kings, no drama, only quiet repetition, prayer, labor, study, silence. For the next 2 hours, you'll explore the cloistered world few ever saw, where ink stains fingertips, bread is baked without salt, and obedience is not a virtue, but a rule. If this story helps you rest, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now take a deep breath, let the incense rise, let the stone walls close around you, and prepare to enter a world ruled by silence. The cold wakes you before the bell, your breath is a cloud. You dress in silence. You pray not because you choose to, but because you must. The first thing you notice is the cold. There is no fire in your cell, only a small slit of a window, a straw mattress that crunches as you sit up, and a robe that never quite warms you. The bell hasn't rung yet, but your eyes open just the same. It is still dark. Deep, weighty dark, the kind that presses on the eyes. You reach for your scapular, a strip of fabric that goes over your shoulders, and pull your cowl over your head. It smells faintly of smoke and dust. You do not speak, you do not yawn. You simply rise and wait. The rule of Saint Benedict, your day is not your own. It belongs to the rule. The rule of Saint Benedict, written centuries ago, guides every hour, every act, every breath. It tells you when to wake, when to eat, when to kneel, when to remain still. It tells you what to say, and when to say nothing. Silence is not punishment here. It is discipline. The hours of prayer, the bell finally tolls. It is the first hour of prayer, vigils. It is not meant to be convenient. It is meant to test your soul. You shuffle down the cold stone hallway, your sandals brushing softly. Around you, others walk as shadows, brothers you have lived with for months, perhaps years, but rarely spoken to directly. You enter the chapel. It is dimly lit. A single candle flickers beside the crucifix. You stand, you kneel, you chant. The psalms are sung in Latin, your voice joining the ancient rhythm. Not loudly, not with passion, but with submission. In the first meal after the first prayers, you eat. Not in a dining room, but in the refectory. The meal is silent. Only one monk speaks, the reader who recites scripture as others chew. There is no meat, only bread, a few beans, perhaps a boiled root. You eat slowly, gratefully. You do not look up. Work in obedience. After the meal, you work. Some tend the gardens, some clean the cloister, some copy texts, bent over parchment, quill in hand, inking each letter with reverence. You are assigned without question. You obey without resistance.
The work is not hard, but it is constant.
Each act, no matter how small, is a form of devotion. Why you wouldn't last to an outsider? This life seems peaceful. And in some ways it is. There are no wars here. No politics, no noise. But what makes it hard is not the hunger or the cold. It is the submission, the endless giving away of your will. You do not ask why. You do not pursue comfort. You do not shape your day. The monastery strips away your desires until all that remains is routine and surrender. Let your thoughts linger here, in the echo of that morning bell, in the scratch of straw beneath linen, in the soft rhythm of sandals on stone. In the next segment, we'll step into the heart of the monastery, where candlelight meets ink and silence speaks through every letter. In a world without printing presses, every word was earned, every letter a prayer, every finished page a quiet victory against time. You do not choose what to copy, the librarian decides. You simply take your place in the Scriptorium, a long, narrow room lit by narrow windows and warmed only by the sun, if it shows itself. You sit at your wooden desk, sloped, worn smooth by countless elbows before yours. Before you, a page of vellum, stretched calfskin, pale and smooth. Not paper, not yet. Paper is still a rarity here in the West. Beside the vellum, a small knife for scraping mistakes. A sand-filled inkwell, a goose feather trimmed to a point. You dip the quill. You breathe and you begin. In the work of a scribe, there are no shortcuts. Each letter must be formed with care, not merely for beauty, but for clarity. One mistake, one smudge, and the meaning could be lost. Latin flows from your fingers, even if you barely understand its full meaning. You write what you are told, what has been written before. Sometimes scripture, sometimes sermons, sometimes the writings of long-dead Roman thinkers. It is not for you to question, only to preserve. The hours drift by, your hand begins to ache. Your eyes blur, your back stiffens. Still, you write, the room is hushed. Occasionally a cough, the faint shuffle of a robe, the rustle of a turning page. It is not unpleasant, but it is unchanging. A world held still in ink and repetition. The letters curl and loop, each one a small act of reverence. The page fills slowly, carefully. Illumination. If you are one of the lucky few, you may be trained in illumination, the art of decorating sacred texts. Here the work becomes more than words. You add gold leaf, lapis blue, spirals of red and green pigment, dragons, vines, saints, all curling around the sacred letters. But this too must follow the rule. No vanity, no pride. Even beauty here must be obedient. Why it mattered books were precious. One text could take months, even years, to complete. And without scribes, knowledge could be lost. The monastery preserved more than prayers. It preserved civilization. In the dust of ages, these quiet hands kept the light alive. Let your mind rest now, in the steady scratching of the quill, the soft tap of the knife scraping a blot, the quiet pride of a line completed. In the next segment, we'll follow the silent footsteps beyond the Scriptorium, into the cloister where monks moved in silence beneath open sky, and the space between prayers was measured by stillness. Stone underfoot, arches above, and only the wind to speak for you. In the cloister, silence is not absence, it is discipline. There are no doors between the heart of the monastery and the cloister, only quiet thresholds. You step from the Scriptorium into open air, though the walls still surround you. The cloister is a square garden, framed on all sides by arched stone walkways, a small patch of green in the midst of gray stone. The grass is trimmed short, the paths are swept. The silence is almost tangible. You do not speak here. No one does. The purpose of the cloister. This is not a place for conversation. It is a place for movement, for reflection, for walking, with the soul in quiet thought. You walk slowly, head bowed, hands tucked into your sleeves. You are not meant to look around. You are not here to admire the flowers or watch the clouds. The cloister exists to separate the world outside from the stillness within. Its rhythm is quiet, measured. Monastic town, the architecture of silence. The columns that frame the walkway are worn smooth, soft from the hands of generations. The arches curve with perfect symmetry. Their beauty is restrained, never ornate, never distracting. Above you, the roofline shields from rain. Below you, the flagstones are cool to the touch, sometimes damp. The only sound for your own sandals brushing against stone. Perhaps a bird in the garden? The creak of an old hinge. The wind, it is not emptiness. It is intention. Meditation in motion. You walk the cloister not once but many times each day. Before prayer, after meals, during assigned moments of reflection. You do not choose the pace. You do not decide where to stop. You simply follow the path, square that leads only back to itself. And in this repetition you are asked to let go of ambition, of questions, of noise. Each step is a prayer, each turn a surrender. Why it's harder than it seems, many outsiders imagine peace, stillness, perhaps boredom. But walking the cloister is not restful. It is a form of discipline. You are not distracted. You are not entertained. You are alone with your thoughts. And in a world of vows, that is sometimes the hardest part. Let your thoughts slow now. Feel the worn stone beneath your feet. Let the arches shelter you. Let the silence hold you. In the next segment, we'll slip into the most private part of monastic life. The cold little cell where sleep, prayer, and solitude blur into one. 4 walls, 1 straw mattress, and the breath of silence. The cell is not a prison, but a place to forget the self. And you return to your cell not to relax, but to reflect. There is no lock on the door, no window that opens. Only a narrow slit in the stone that lets in just enough light to mark the change of day. Your bed is simple. A frame of wood, a sack filled with straw, a blanket that carries the scent of dust and old wool. In the corner, a small wooden cross. Beside it, a low shelf holding a single book, if you are allowed one, and perhaps a candle stub. That is all honor. Why so bare? The monastic cell is meant to strip away distraction. No paintings, no furnishings, no comforts. Here you are left with only what matters, your prayers, your thoughts, and in time. Every surface is cold to the touch. Even in summer, the walls stay damp. In winter, your breath curls in the air like smoke. The simplicity is not accidental. It is part of the rule. A monk owns nothing, desires nothing, and must in time become nothing. A daily routine inside the cell. You spend little time here during the day. Only brief moments between duties. Time to memorize scripture. Or sit in silent contemplation. Or rest and not deeply. Just enough to restore your focus. At night you return in darkness. There is no nightstand, no clock, no fire. You lay on the straw, fully clothed, your robe wrapped around you, head resting on folded hands or a cloth bundle. You do not sleep deeply. The bell may call you again in just a few hours. Still, for a time, there is stillness. Greet what you hear. The monastery is quiet but not silent. You might hear the wind pushing through narrow windows, the distant creak of old wood, footsteps from the cloister, a cough from the next cell, a bell. Always a bell. Even the silence has texture here. Layers of quiet that settle like dust. Yet the challenge of the cell. For many new novices, this is where the struggle begins. Not with cold, not with hunger, but with isolation. There are no distractions, no stories, no conversation, only yourself. And whatever thoughts you have brought with you, here, in the stillness, you must learn to let them go. Let your mind drift now into the quiet of that cell. Stone all around you, a straw mattress below, and the rhythm of the bells far off in the night. In the next segment, we'll enter the monastery's kitchen and garden, where nourishment is prepared with care, patience, and a vow of simplicity. No feast, no spices, no indulgence, only what was needed, and sometimes not even that. The monastery's kitchen is not a lively place. There is no laughter, no sizzling pans, no aromas of roasting meats or sweet confections. Instead, there is a quiet rhythm, a crackling hearth, the scrape of wooden ladles, the soft sound of boiling, always gently boiling. You do not come here to eat. You come to be fed, with humility, with obedience, with what is offered, and no more. The rule of the table. According to the rule of St. Benedict, monks are to eat 2 meals a day and no meat from 4-footed animals. That means no beef, no pork, no lamb. Fish is permitted, but only when it is available, and even then sparingly. Meals are simple, often consisting of vegetable pottage, a sort of stew made from whatever is grown in the monastery's garden, onions, leeks, turnips, cabbage, maybe barley if there's enough, a small crust of bread, sometimes cheese, rarely eggs. Water is the usual drink. Wine is permitted, but diluted and only in moderation. Even flavor is restrained. No garlic, no pungent herbs, just enough salt to keep the food from spoiling. Silence at the table. When the bell rings for the refectory, you file in with the others. You sit at long wooden benches. You keep your eyes low, your hands folded until the prayer is spoken. You do not speak. While you eat, one monk stands at a raised lectern reading aloud from Scripture or the lives of the saints. His voice is steady, soft. It weaves through the steam of the stew and the scraping of spoons against wooden bowls. No one comments on the food. No one asks for more. You eat what you are given. You finish it quietly. Fasting and feasts. The calendar is dotted with fasting days, times when meals are even more restricted. Advent, Lent, the eve of certain feast days. On these days, the meals are reduced to near nothing. Perhaps a piece of dry bread, a few roots, no fats, no wine. And yet, when feast days come, the increase is modest. A bit more butter, a second bowl, perhaps a preserved fish. Joy is not found in excess, but in moderation. In the monastic garden. Just beyond the cloister, you'll find the monastery's garden. A carefully tended plot of earth divided into neat rows and beds. Monks grow herbs for healing, onions for the kitchen, beans for the winter months. The soil is dark, turned with care, watered from rain barrels, weeded by hand. Even here there is no idle talk, only the soft sound of a hoe in earth, the flutter of linen robes in wind, and the rustle of plants growing slowly in the sun. Why it was so hard? You might think, what's difficult about simple food? But the challenge lies not in hunger, it lies in restraint, in giving up choice, In resisting desire day after day, you don't eat what you want. You eat what the rule allows. Not too much, not too often. Not for pleasure, only to serve the body so the soul can remain sharp. Let your thoughts settle now, into the steam rising from a bowl of stew, the soft crunch of crust, the steady voice reading from ancient words. In the next segment, we'll explore the mysteries of monastic timekeeping, where bells divide the day and every hour belongs to prayer. There were no clocks, only bells, and when they rang, you obeyed. Time belonged not to you, but to God. In a medieval monastery, you did not keep time. You obeyed it. There was no clock on the wall, no personal hourglass, no sundial you could call your own. Instead, your life moved to the rhythm of the bell. High in the tower, a single rope hung down through stone. It was thick, worn smooth by the hands of centuries. When it moved, when it rang, and you rose, you knelt, you walked, you prayed. The bell was not just a signal. It was a command. The hours of the divine office. Your day was divided into 8 sacred hours, each with its Latin name, each with a purpose. Matins, in the deep of night. Lauds, yen, before sunrise. Prime, at first light. Terce, mid-morning. Sext, noon. None, mid-afternoon. Vespers, evening. Compline, just before bed. Every one of these required prayer. Even if you were tired. Even if you were hungry. Even if your hands ached from labor. When the bell rang, you stopped and went. On, how they kept time without clocks. But how did the bell know when to ring? There were no mechanical clocks in the early medieval monasteries. Instead, monks used the movement of the sun, the length of shadows, or the simple passing of time measured by experience. Some used water clocks, bowls that slowly filled or emptied. Others relied on hour candles, marked with rings to track time as they burned. A designated monk, often the sacristan or timekeeper, watched the signs, counted the moments, and rang the bell with quiet reverence. Awaking to the bell. Imagine it now. You are asleep on your straw mattress, wrapped in your robe. The cold presses in around you. Your limbs are heavy, then the bell tolls. One long, low ring, you sit up. There is no hesitation. No excuse, no snooze. You rise, join the others, and head silently to the chapel for vigils. In darkness, always in darkness, came the burden of ritual. It might sound peaceful, a life of prayer and structure. But make no mistake, this rigidity wore down the soul. You never shaped your own day. You never lost yourself in time. The bell always found you. Even in sleep, even in solitude, you were never far from its voice. Let your thoughts drift now, as if you too are waiting for the next toll. Let your breath slow to match the rhythm of the hours. Let time pass softly like candle smoke. In the next segment, we'll explore how monks lived through illness and injury, in silence with herbs, prayer, and quiet dignity. No doctors, no noise. No complaints, only herbs, prayer, and quiet resignation. For illness in a monastery was not rare, nor was it unexpected. In a world of poor sanitation, limited diets, and cold stone walls, sickness was as much a part of life as prayer and labor. But here, behind cloistered doors, illness was met not with fear, but with stillness. You did not cry out. You did not ask for relief. You accepted, you endured. You folded your hands beneath your robe and turned inward. In the infirmary. Each monastery had an infirmary, a quiet, isolated room or wing where the sick were taken and cared for. It was simple but carefully maintained. Beds were slightly softer, perhaps filled with cleaner straw or padded with extra cloth. A window might be kept open for air. A basin was placed nearby for washing. Everything was done slowly, gently, without noise. A monastic medicine. There were no surgeons. No syringes, no sterile gloves. Only herbs and prayer. Monks trained in herbal knowledge grew their own remedies. In the physic garden, a plot filled with healing plants. Lavender for rest, comfrey for pain, mint to settle the stomach. They prepared infusions, salves, and poultices, sometimes warmed gently by the hearth. These were applied with care, not with urgency, but with quiet ritual. Suffering in silence. Pain was endured, not resisted. To suffer was to imitate Christ. To endure silently was a form of piety. Monks did not complain, they did not cry out. They did not seek pity. Even fever, even bleeding, even the final breath was faced in silence, If death approached, the last rites were whispered. A psalm was murmured, and the candle at the foot of the bed burned until it guttered out. See healing if it came. If you recovered, there was no celebration. You returned to your duties, your cell, your rule, perhaps thinner, perhaps weaker, but also quieter inside. And if you did not recover, you were laid in a simple shroud. Your name entered into the monastery's book of the dead, and your grave marked only with a wooden cross. No epitaph, no eulogy, only a bell, once, low and slow. Let your thoughts rest now in the hush of the infirmary, in the scent of lavender and smoke, in the quiet dignity of a life lived without complaint. In the next segment, we'll return to daily duties and explore how monks spent their manual labor hours, tending fields, building walls, or crafting in workshops. To work was not a burden. It was prayer in motion, a silent offering shaped in sweat and stone. You rise from prayer, but you do not return to rest. Instead, you are directed, without question, without delay, to your assigned labor. This is the 6th hour. The sun has risen, the bells have spoken, and the rule tells you to work. There is no reward, no recognition. The work is its own obedience, vista the monastic view of labor. In the eyes of the monastery, labor is holy. To dig, to build, to mend, to carry, all are equal before God. Whether you are tilling the garden or binding the covers of a psalter, you do so without pride. You do not compete, you do not complain. You do not ask for easier tasks. Work is a form of humility, a way to dissolve the self into something useful. The work itself. You might be sent to the fields, where rows of barley shimmer under gray skies. You bend, pull weeds, swing the hoe, harvest by hand. Your robe catches on brambles. Your sandals fill with soil. Or you may be inside, shaping bricks from clay, repairing a crumbling wall, stirring the heavy vats in the brewery. The tools are simple, the motions repetitive. You learn to work without thought, without pause. There is no rush and only rhythm. A skilled trades in the monastery. Not all monks labor in the field. Some are smiths hammering iron gently into hinges and hooks. Some are cobblers stitching soles to sandals, hands moving with practiced ease. Some carve wood, some press grapes, some grind pigments for the Scriptorium. Each task has been done for years before you arrived, and will be done for years after you are gone. Fiercely the sound of monastic labor. There is no shouting, no laughter, no hurried footsteps. Only the steady thud of a mallet, the soft rasp of a file, the clink of tools laid down on stone. Occasionally a psalm is hummed under breath, barely audible, as hands work quietly and faithfully. Our Wyatt felt eternal. There is no promotion, no new assignment unless given. No weekend, no end. This day is like the last. Tomorrow will be the same. You work not for gain, but for discipline. The body is humbled. The spirit is trained. The ego is dissolved. Let your thoughts settle now into the rhythm of motion, the scrape of hoe against earth, the swing of a hammer, the hush of quiet labor in the cold morning air. In the next segment, we'll walk into the minds of monks, through books, memory, and the quiet journey of inner scholarship. To learn was not to challenge. It was to remember, to copy, to listen, to carry the past forward one word at a time. You are not taught in the way children are taught today. There is no chalkboard, no open discussion, no clever debate. Instead, you learn in silence, by listening, by repeating, by copying the knowledge of men long dead without question. You are here not to explore, but to absorb. The mind, like the hands, must be trained to obey. The content of learning your studies are narrow but deep. They focus almost entirely on Latin, not spoken but read and written. You study Scripture, the Psalms, the lives of the saints, and a careful selection of church fathers. Sometimes, if the library is rich, you might copy the words of Pliny, Cicero, or Boethius, not for argument, only for preservation. There are no opinions here, only truths already spoken. How you learn, there are no textbooks, no printed guides. You sit on a bench with a wooden tablet, a wax surface for practice. You trace your letters, you recite aloud in a low voice. You listen as the elder monk reads. You memorize long passages and word by word, until they become part of you. Mistakes are not punished loudly, but they are displeasing to God. So you try again, quietly, endlessly. The role of memory is everything. The written word is precious but fragile. It can burn, it can rot. It can be lost. The word held in the mind, however, can pass silently through generations. So you learn not just to write, but to remember, to carry the words of saints and scholars inside your own quiet thoughts. But knowledge as obedience, you are never asked what you think. You are only asked if you have understood, if you can recite, if you have remembered. Understanding is not the goal, faith is. There's comfort in this. There is no pressure to innovate. No need to find a new way, only the ancient way. Let your thoughts rest now on the smooth wax of a writing tablet, the echo of soft Latin in the chapel, the comfort of learning without pressure or doubt. In the next segment, we'll turn from the individual mind to the communal voice and explore the deep stillness of monastic chanting. No rhythm, no harmony, no performance, just breath and tone carried together toward the divine. You do not sing to be heard. You sing to join. When the bell calls you to prayer, you step into the chapel in silence. You do not speak, you do not cough, you do not shift your feet. You wait, and then, together as one, the chant begins. There is no instrument, no beat, no melody as the world would know it. Only a single line of tone, lifted, held, passed from monk to monk like a candle in the dark, on the nature of the chant. Gregorian chant is not a song. It is a form of prayer, a rhythm of the lungs, a shaping of sacred syllables into sound. The chant moves in modes, not major, not minor, but soft ancient scales that feel neither joyful nor sad. They drift, they hover, they return to the same tone again and again like waves brushing stone. It is not meant to stir you, it is meant to still you. The look of it. The music is written in neumes, small marks, floating above lines, not quite notes as we know them. Each mark tells you where the voice should rise, where it should fall, when it should hold. But nothing is rushed. No two chants sound the same. Each monastery has its rhythm, its inflections, its pace. You are taught by listening, by imitation. You match your breath to the brother beside you, until your voice no longer feels separate. That's why it was harder than it sounds. Singing in unison is not effortless. It takes focus, control, restraint. Your voice must not tremble. You must not rise above the others. There is no room for pride. No room for beauty even, only unity. You sing for the space, for the moment, for the divine. And when it ends, you do not bow. You do not smile, you return to your place. You wait for silence. Go. The effect, the chant lingers long after it ends. Like smoke in a cold room. Like mist beneath stone arches. It hums in your chest, it slows the heart. It turns thought inward softly. Even centuries later, it is still sung. A music that belongs to no time and needs no audience. Let your thoughts slow now to the pace of breath and tone. The ancient voice of monks echoing gently across stone, repeating syllables not for melody, but for meaning. In the next segment, we'll explore how monks navigated the changing seasons, with rituals, hardship, and quiet adaptation. The sun shifts, the earth hardens or softens, but the rule does not change. Time flows quietly in cycles of cold and light. The monastery does not resist the seasons. It does not challenge the cold nor celebrate the warmth. It simply adapts. There are no festivals of excess. No grand harvest banquets, no spring dances or winter revels. Only the steady practice of devotion, shaped subtly by the turning of the year. Uttered the cold months, winter in the monastery. Winter begins early in the stone corridors. The cold seeps through the walls by late autumn, and it stays, long past the first thaw. You wake before dawn, your breath visible, your fingers stiff. The bell still rings, but it echoes more slowly through the frozen air. Meals are warm but thin. More barley gruel, more root vegetables, less cheese, less green. Gardens sleep, work moves indoors. Robes are worn in layers. Straw is added beneath the sandals. There is no fire in your cell. But the rule continues. Vigils are held in the cold. Scripture is recited with chattering teeth. Silence is heavier in the stillness. Are the warm months, summer and its demands. When summer comes, life does not become easier, only different. The sun rises earlier, so does the bell. You rise in dim light, sweat forming before the day's labor has even begun. The fields demand more of you now, hoeing, harvesting, hauling water. Insects gather around the cloisters. The air inside becomes close, thick with heat and the scent of sweat-soaked linen. Still the same prayers, the same readings, the same expectation of silence. There is no relief, only adjustment. The liturgical year. But while the physical seasons turn, another calendar also unfolds, the liturgical year. It does not follow the harvest but the life of Christ, Advent quiet anticipation, Christmas soft rejoicing, and Lent long reflection, Easter a quiet deep celebration, ordinary time most of the year, filled with repetition, work, and prayer. Each season brings a change in tone, a slightly different psalm, a new reading at lauds, a longer pause between lines of chant. The rhythm of worship slows and quickens like a tide within the larger tide of the seasons. Within the year you do not celebrate your birthday. You do not count your years. Time is measured in feasts and fasts in the date of Easter. In how long the shadows stretch across the refectory floor, you are part of a circle that never breaks. Let your thoughts drift now with the passing wind outside the cloister wall. Chill or warm, gentle or dry, but always present, always shifting. In the next segment, we'll journey beyond the monastery gates to explore the relationship between monks and the outside world. The world beyond the walls was loud, unpredictable, dangerous. Yet even here the monastery left its quiet mark. Though you rarely leave the monastery, you are not separate from the world. Beyond the stone walls and cloister walks there are villages, markets, lords, wars, and plagues. The world turns, louder, messier, and less predictable than the quiet life you live. But the monastery is not forgotten. It is respected, feared, sometimes resented, always watched. Monks as landowners, many monasteries own land. Not just the plots they till, but wide estates gifted by nobles. These lands are worked by peasants, men and women who may never enter the chapel but whose labor feeds it. They bring grain, wool taxes, and on occasion disputes. The prior or cellarer might speak to them, briefly with care. But most monks remain apart, devoted to prayer, not politics. Still you benefit from what they bring. Your silence is supported by the work of others. On pilgrims and the poor at the monastery gate, visitors sometimes arrive. Pilgrims, seeking shelter for the night on their way to a distant shrine. The poor, hoping for bread or a bit of warmth. It is part of the rule to receive them, as Christ himself. So the porter opens the door, offers a basin for washing, serves a modest meal, speaks little. You may see the strangers in the chapel sitting at the back listening to chant they cannot understand. Then they leave, often before dawn. The monastery absorbs them gently and lets them go without fuss. Dealings with lords and bishops, occasionally a bishop visits, or a nobleman with land to donate, or a messenger from the king. These guests are shown special care but not indulgence. A separate table is set, extra broth may be served, perhaps better wine. But there is no feasting, no celebration. Even power must bow briefly to the stillness within these walls. The monastery's reputation. Outside, the monastery is sometimes spoken of with awe, other times with suspicion. To some, you are holy men and keepers of wisdom, intercessors between God and the fallen world. To others, you are privileged, hoarding land and avoiding taxes behind sacred chants. But none of this touches you. You do not answer critics. You do not seek praise. You simply follow the rule day after day, season after season. Let your thoughts rest now on the cool stone gate, half open to the world, but always returning to silence once it closes. In the next segment, we'll look at the architecture of the monastery itself. The stone, the arches, the rooms that shape the rhythm of monastic life.
The walls did not merely hold the monastery together.
They told it how to breathe, how to listen, how to endure. And the monastery is not just a place you live in. It is a presence of its own. Stone laid upon stone, built not for comfort but for order. Its layout teaches you how to move. Its cold teaches you how to endure. Its echo reminds you how to speak or not speak at all. The architecture is not grand. It is not ornate, it is intentional. Every doorway, every corridor, every small window placed just so. The cloister walk. At the heart of the monastery is the cloister, a square of open air surrounded by covered walks. Here you walk slowly, always in silence, one hand sometimes brushing the cold stone wall, your robe whispering with every step. The cloister is not just a passageway, it is a path for the soul. A space to reflect, to breathe. It leads everywhere, yet demands that you never hurry. The chapter house. This is where you gather each morning to listen to a reading from the rule, to confess your errors, to accept silence as correction. The room is plain, A circle of stone benches, a low ceiling, no decoration. The only voice is that of the reader. The only sound, the occasional clearing of a throat, a cough stifled in a sleeve. Discipline is not enforced here, it is absorbed. The refectory. This is the dining hall, but it is no place for chatter. You eat in silence, seated in long rows. Bread broth. A spoon, a bowl. One monk stands to read aloud as the rest eat. Scripture, hagiography. Sometimes a lesson from a long-dead Roman. You do not look up, you do not speak. You eat slowly, gratefully, mindfully. The cell. Your sleeping quarters are small. A cell of stone, a low wooden bed, a straw mattress, a rough blanket. A shelf for your book, a hook for your robe, a small window with no glass. There is no fire, no pillow. No luxury, but also no noise. No distraction, only space to rest, to pray, to be still. Built to last, these walls have outlived generations. They were built thick, not just against weather, but against pride, distraction, desire. They hold the silence, they absorb the prayers. They do not change. As the world outside shifts and groans, the monastery remains. Calm, cold, patient. Let your thoughts settle now into the texture of worn stone, the rhythm of your footsteps across the cloister, the hush of 1,000 prayers echoing through vaulted ceilings. In the next segment, we'll follow what happens when the rule is finally broken, when a monk leaves by force or by will. Not all who took the vow kept it. Some drifted, some disappeared, and some quietly chose to leave. The monastery was meant to be forever, a place apart, a life removed. But not every soul remained, not every vow endured. Now and then, rarely but not never, a monk would leave. Some by force, some by failure, and some by their own quiet decision. It was not dramatic, it was not loud. It happened slowly, it happened without music. On the silent crisis, perhaps it began with restlessness. The chants no longer stirred the soul. The rhythm of days began to feel too tight, too endless. The silence, once comforting, began to press like a weight. A brother might walk slower, fall behind in duties, speak when he should not. He might spend too long gazing past the walls toward the distant trees. The village road. He does not say it aloud, but something in him wants to go. And the formal leaving. Exclaustration leaving was not simple. A monk could not just disappear, not without spiritual consequence. The proper way was called exclaustration, a temporary or permanent release from the rule. A bishop might approve it or not. The monk would be called to the chapter house, his departure read aloud. There would be no ceremony, no send-off, just a robe laid down, a name crossed from the roll, punishment and banishment. Sometimes a monk did not leave by choice. He might have broken his vow, stolen, fought spoken blasphemy. There were no prisons in the monastery, no beatings, no public shaming. But there was banishment. He would be told to go, and go he would, with nothing but the clothes on his back and silence behind him. His name would no longer be spoken, his cell given to another, his memory gently folded away. Life beyond the walls. What became of those who left? Some became hermits, living alone in huts, still clinging to prayer. Others returned to the world, became scribes, teachers, beggars, or wanderers. Some lost themselves in noise and drink. Others found peace beyond the rule. None ever fully belonged again. To leave the monastery was to step into a world that no longer spoke your language, where time rushed and silence was never complete. Let your thoughts wander now down the quiet path away from the cloister, into the fields beyond, where once a monk walked, robes trailing in the wind, wondering what it meant to be free. In the final segment, we'll return to the stillness and reflect on what remains after a life shaped by silence. There were no monuments, no mourning crowds, just silence, prayer, and the slow fading of one life into the pattern of many. Eventually, every monk reaches his final day, not marked in calendars, not spoken of in advance, but known all the same. The body grows slower. The walk from cell to chapel becomes longer. Meals are smaller, the voice in chant softer, and one morning he does not rise. In death in the monastery, there is no panic, no rush. The brethren gather, not in fear but in prayer. A candle is lit, the psalms are read. There is no wailing, no weeping, only the ancient words spoken softly over the stillness of a linen-wrapped form. He is not embalmed, not dressed in fine cloth, simply laid in the robe he wore in life. The burial outside in the monastery's small graveyard. A narrow trench is dug by hand. No coffin, just earth, cool, heavy, and waiting. The monks carry him there step by step, chanting as they go, not to send him off, but to return him. The body is lowered. The earth is folded back, the chant fades. There is no stone, no grand marker, only a wooden cross, a name, and the sound of wind through grass. How he is remembered. He is not remembered with speeches. No feast is held in his honor. His name may be read once at morning prayers, then rarely again. But his life is remembered in quieter ways. In the book he copied, the wall he mended, the seed he planted, now a small apple tree by the cloister. He becomes part of the rhythm, not lost but blended, a drop of ink in a great scroll. What remains? The monastery continues. The bell rings the next day. The rule is followed, the psalms are sung. Another monk takes his cell. Another voice joins the chant. Another bowl is placed on the table. Time does not stop. And yet, something small lingers. In the echoes of prayer, in the worn stones, in the silence between bells. Let your thoughts rest now with the final toll of that quiet bell. A life gently folded into eternity, surrounded not by noise or fame, but by peace and the soft rhythm of devotion. You have walked the cloister, felt the cold stone, heard the ancient chants. Now let sleep take you, slowly, gently, like the last steps of a monk toward a still silent dawn.